Tonight, I have a return engagement from one of my favorite people. Um, Randy Credico is a political satirist, civil rights activist, host, director, and producer of Live on the Fly on PRN and WBAI 99.5 FM Pacifica Radio in New York City, and Assange Countdown to Freedom. He is the former director of the William Moses Kunstler Fund for Racial Justice. Randy, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thank you very much for having me back, Malcolm. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be invited back to this wonderful program. And as I said before, you have the best radio voice on the planet.
Well, thank you, Randy, but I like yours too. I think you got a good radio voice. I think the cigars help too, by the way.
I can't smoke cigars on television and podcasts. I prefer radio. I don't like podcasts, video podcasts. I've always been more in tune with radio. There's something about radio, and I've been listening. I used to listen to old radio shows when I was 15, 16, 17, going back to Bing Crosby shows, Hal Jolson shows, Ink Spot shows. I just love the old days of radio, and even the ones with E.G. Marshall. I liked some
Yeah.
kind. All right, there's something about radio. It takes Gunsmoke was good on radio, as it is. I still watch Gunsmoke, by the way, because Sam Peckinpah was one of the creators and early producers of Gunsmoke. But why am I talking about Gunsmoke when there's
Well, I
so
don't know.
much violence?
Some relevance
Huh?
somewhere. So tell me about your recent adventures. I know I've been following you, and I've been seeing your truck with the Assange billboards, and you've been going down to DC and driving around Times Square. And I think
Oh
it's just
no, no, DC, all around DC. I mean, there was a truck that I started August of 2022, and it ran on and off, like first of all 4 or 5 months straight, and then came back and sporadically ran in 2023. And the last time was Christmas Eve in DC. Now that was like a year and a half on that truck, I think. And then tomorrow or Tuesday, we're launching a new campaign with not one, two trucks twice as big as a truck in DC that are going to be running around New York City for a minimum of 7 or 8 days. Two trucks, and they'll be going around the UK embassy, the UN, all the federal buildings, and just throughout Manhattan and then Brooklyn at some point in Queens, but a heavy emphasis around the UK consulate here. And so two with five different panels and two panels on the back there that are like 1/3 the size just to fill the back. But so it's an ambitious engagement. It's much bigger than what I did in DC, but I think it's really critical that since I've been doing a radio show at BAI for 8 years and PRN for 3 years, and you can only reach so many people, and it becomes like a choir, and it's good to preach the choir to get them motivated, but how do we reach the people out there? And there's not enough ground troops for demonstrations and rallies, just not. You know what I mean? Can you imagine if we had the kind of throngs showing up at these Assange events that are similar to what is going on with these anti-genocide rallies? All right, so it's very difficult, and I don't want to get into why. There's a lot of reasons why. Not a popular cause. People have been misled. The disinformation and the disparagement and the smear job on Assange, the lies and everything have been embedded in the public's consciousness for years now. So
Mhm.
it's difficult. But so here we're going to take it. We'll take the truck and let people see and try to tell a story there. You know, one of them is, you see, 12 years of political prisoner. He's 13 now, but, 12 years political prisoner, something about that 12 years. And it was, we did that last year. And then you got a picture of him, and then you got a picture of his wife and his two kids, their two kids, together, deciding to let Assange go and join his family. And he has been a political prisoner. The other side shows on this one truck, you've got the collateral murder crosshairs to the civilians on one side. These people, these U.S. soldiers, the U.S. committed war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. And this man exposed it, Assange, but he's in jail and they're not. Jail the killers, not the messenger, So, and then the other two trucks have something to do with the First Amendment and the attempted assassination on Assange and the lies about him. Whether it be this guy Ziggy, the pervert, convict in Iceland who gave perjured testimony. The whole thing with the UC Global, all of that stuff, and the stuff that came out in Yahoo News and other outlets about Pompeo organizing all of that garbage, kidnapping him and possibly assassinating him in the UK. So those are four or five of the panels that we got, and they're huge. They're really huge. And so, I don't know what else to do, to be honest with you. I've been at this. I've been doing WBAI, the Live on the Fly is the name of the show. I've had this series. I don't know why I call it Assange Countdown to Freedom, but it's a long countdown, I'll tell you. So I call it the Assange series that we've done. This is you try to find inventive ways, inventive and unusual ways of, getting the word out there. And this is the best I can offer at this point in time. But the response has been good. I was expecting just one truck for 1 week, and when we put the word out there, we got enough money to do two trucks for more than a week, like 8 days. So these are all individuals. I'm not getting it from some self-appointed Assange campaign somewhere else. This is all grassroots, and that's the way it should be, because this has to be a horizontal movement, not a vertical top-down movement. Because look, he's in worse shape than he's ever been in. So you got to ignore conventional stuff that has been put out there and wildcat, and try to come up with something creative and hopefully ingenious that will break this stalemate.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you need anybody to ride shotgun, give me a call.
We do.
I would be very happy to do
No,
it.
I want you to come down. Listen, you come down this week. You come. In fact, you're invited to speak and come down on the 20th. Malcolm, you should come down on the 20th, because we'll be out there with the truck. There's going to be a rally, protest. Everybody's going to London. Chris Hedges is going to London. Joe Lombardi, your friend, is going to London for the hearing. Maybe Scott Ritter will come down. Our big gun Roger is in Barbados. Roger Waters, he won't be there, but there's going to be some event at noon on the 20th. And so there are two trucks. I'm driving shotgun in one of them. We have professional drivers. I don't have a class.
Yeah.
And then so I'm always looking for someone to be in the one that's going to be tailing it, and at times passing it. It's like two buses on Madison Avenue. One's in front, and then suddenly that one's behind the one that's behind it, So I'm always looking for someone to drive in the truck. I think maybe the first day I have somebody who plays guitar, who's, maybe we'll jump out. And he's a Latino from Chile, and he's very good. And, he gets out there and he engages with people. And I got a lot of, I'll show you. Oh, you can't see it. This is not video. But I got a lot of.
Well, go ahead and show it to me.
All right. Well, just stay there and burn the time.
Randy is now getting up. He's moving across
Yes,
the room. He is finding some
just
papers on
showed
the
up. Just showed
Great.
up. Thousands and thousands of these here. So this is what they look like.
Excellent. Yes, very nice.
They're very professionally done by a friend of mine by the name of Steve Brown, who volunteered, and
That's
he
a
shipped them
couple of,
to me. And I said, "How much do I?" He says, "Just take me out for lunch one day. I know it's like $500 worth of goods." So people are coming through, and so we have that, and I'll try to get people out there. I'm going to have some flyers. New York NYC Free Assange is organizing this event, and in front of the UK embassy, which is on 47th, between 47th and 48th on Second Avenue. So, look, we need 100,000 people there to change
oh,
this. If you try. We get
yes.
30. It's going to be cold out probably. It's going to be cold this week. The first day of the truck, it's going to be raining, and but it's a shakedown cruise Tuesday. So but you're invited anytime. We'd love to have you here. You
Well,
know,
I'll connect with you via
you
email
will. Is that a
tomorrow.
promise? You'll come drive shotgun in one of the two
I'll
trucks,
definitely do that.
and we'll go to
Absolutely.
the same restaurant, and both of us will share a non-alcoholic beer, which I've been drinking for 6 months now since
Okay.
I last saw you.
You got a deal, Randy. So let's talk about Julian's situation for people who may not be up on what's happened and happening currently. I had Chris Hedges on the show 2 weeks back, and Chris is, as you mentioned, on his way over there to go to the hearing. Is this Julian's final hearing in Britain, or?
I don't know if it's a gimmick or what that getting people excited and nervous and all of that, or if it's. I don't think it's hard. It's hard to speculate. All I can tell you is it's to watch these proceedings would be like watching the proceedings headed by Judge Ronald Fleischer in Berlin in 1944 of the those who supposedly plotted against Hitler. These are already pre-written, and you're just going to hear some pre-written dribble from the judges. I mean, the fix is in. The fix is in, and I mean, every judge is in the tank one way or the other. All right, it's like if he were to go in front of Clarence Thomas on any issue, he's going to go against you, right? So you got two Clarence Thomases there that are going to be or whatever Judge Rehnquist, two Judge Rehnquist or whatever that are deciding this. So you're going before them, and they're just looking for ways out, and and pass the buck to the U.S. But it's Biden's already the only person that Biden could probably beat right now in an election is Hunter Biden. That might be his only opponent that he could possibly beat. So maybe they've killed 117 journalists in Gaza with U.S. weapons. All right. Do you think they care about Julian Assange? This is a CIA, and I'm sure Chris has probably said the same thing. I've been saying it for a long time, and so is every CIA ex-official on my show has said that this is a CIA prosecution. There's nothing to do, and you know how political this attorney general is. The attorney general is very political, and so he will go after Assange because he's told to, and so he's not, being objective about it. So he's going to be prosecuted. He's not going to stop the prosecution. He's not going to drop the charges. And then the British judges. I mean, the Brits do what we want them to do. All right, this is 1770 in the U.S. where the Brits were controlling what we did. And then you had the Peter Singer case in I think 1770 where they went against the Brits, where it was, this guy was acquitted and jury nullification. But over here or over there with these judges, will there be someone like that? Will there be a Lord Mansfield who refused in 1772 to return a slave? He said the air is too pure to breathe, too pure to breathe the slavery in the UK, where this American concern had a slave on board in London at dock, and he was like taken off, and it was a 2-year battle, and he won Somerset versus Stewart. And so if you have a judge that's a maverick like Lord Mansfield was in 1772, I believe, and will go against the U.S. and say, no, we're not going to do this. But then again, they had the upper hand back then, not the U.S. And the U.S. has the upper hand right now. The UK does everything we want them to do, whether it be bombing Yemen, engaging with their dying army and dying empire. The empire's done in Ukraine, giving weapons to Ukraine. And same with Gaza. I mean, they just do what we tell them to do. So I'm not optimistic about this. That's why I say you got to get the asses of the masses on the street. It's a lost cause, but those are the only causes worth fighting. And you just keep fighting and keep going, and hope for the best here. But he's got great legal team, but that doesn't matter, does it? Doesn't matter how great the legal team is if it's a Kafka-esque type of show trial. It doesn't matter. They'll always find a way. It's like, I forgot who said it, but some judge said we're ruled by a constitution, and the constitution is what the judges say it is. Forget about the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta is nothing but a rusty old museum piece right now, but it has absolutely no teeth in it. I mean, Britain is becoming worse and worse when it comes to press freedom. They just passed a new law to make it more difficult. Journalists are leaving the UK, except for those that work for Murdoch and some of these other huge corporate vehicles, magazines and newspapers and other outlets. But they have to go, man. People go. They're afraid to go back there, because of the anti-terrorism law. It's so broad. It's so broad. It's like makes the Official Secrecy Act look mild. So they're just going to go along to get along, these judges. And how much pressure has to be put on them? Where does the pressure come? Can you get someone with a conscience that says, all right, I can't do this and live with myself. I got kids and grandkids, and stands up and says, you got to let him go. You got to let him go. Maybe if King Charles dies and the son takes over, he seems to be a little more enlightened and progressive. He would overrule everybody and say, give him a pardon.
So currently Julian is still in Belmarsh
Yes,
prison.
he's in Belmore's prison now. April 11th will be his 5th year there.
And that is, by all accounts, the worst prison in Britain. I mean,
Sing Sing look like Shangri-La. All right. It's a really bad prison. It's noisy, 5,000 people, and everyone, you've heard sound effects. You've heard, how noisy prisons can be. This is really loud, and it's dank. It's really squalid, this prison, and he doesn't get much fresh air. He's allowed out like 1 hour, I think, every couple of days, and outdoors supposedly, but it's not outdoors. It's like in an area with a plant or something, but there's cement on top. And there was a guy by the name of Kropotkin. You remember Kropotkin, Count Kropotkin, who the Tsar put in prison for a long period of time, although he escaped. But he was in the Peter and Paul fortress, and he was in what was really the size of a toll booth. And he stayed sane by walking in circles. That's how I read his autobiography. And he walked in circles to stay sane. But he was actually able to write. The Tsar said, all right, he can write. He could write during the daylight hours. And of course, it got dark early back then in the wintertime when he was writing. So what was I going to say about Kropotkin, how it, I forgot but there's some noise being made in here. I don't know where it's coming from. So Assange is in a very difficult situation, and the oppressive nature of it all over these years has had such a toll on his psyche. One can imagine, what that does to you. 5 years, and for doing nothing. I mean, nothing wrong, nothing illegal. So, I mean, some people might, feel guilty and have misgivings about what they've done. He hasn't done anything wrong, so there's nothing to have misgivings over. All he did was practice journalism, and here he is, foisted in this horrible cell. And look, there's a lot of people in jail in this country that I'm concerned about. There are political prisoners here. There are people in jail, 50,000 statewide in New York, and half of them, 3/4 of them shouldn't be there. Many of them on drug charges, minor drug charges. Many of them framed, and they've got families and all of that, and they come out and they're in very rough shape psychologically, and that's what I did. I did 13 years going to these prisons. I made 300 prison visits, and at the end of it, man, I didn't have the strength to keep going. And you got Mumia in prison. You got Leonard Peltier now for 50 years in prison. There's a lot of people in prison that we got to be concerned about. So why Assange? Well, the reason why Assange is that it will have the repercussions of him going to prison. Could affect me, could affect you. They could shut you off for even interviewing someone like me. How do you practice journalism when they take a journalist who's in jail for practicing journalism? What does that do to others? What kind of chill, what kind of precedent is that? Once they find a way to convict him and put him in jail, they can say, well, here's the precedent. He did do this, and it put our nation in jeopardy, and you can't do that. And so, there's a precedent, and then the First Amendment is gone, and so is everything else. They start closing down your station, WBAI, so this is a domino that we got to get behind and not let it fall, because it will redound on all of us and across the country. And so that's what I think is the reason why I'm so zealously involved. I don't want to. Some people said you got OCD on Assange, but then you take a look at my record. I spent many years in Nicaragua. I spent many years in Tulia, Texas. Rockefeller drug laws for 7 years. I was on the street. You do what you can. I mean, I'm almost 70 years old. I got enough energy to do the one case here and get involved in that. And it's going to be last a couple more weeks, and then I'm going to have to take some time off after this truck, and because I don't know what else I can do next. I just don't know what I can do next. But I know other people have the energy and they got the youth, and they can get out there. And once it's ingrained in their head, inculcated in their head, how significant, how important this case is, and how dire it is and ominous it is, if in fact they get their way, bring them over here and shove it in our face and put them in jail. That's shoving it in our face. You take this. You're going to have to just take this, folks. And most people don't know. I was on the subway coming in from Brooklyn thinking I was going to not make this show today. It took forever. The local train express was gone. The local train was running really slow, and every car that you're on, there's 30, 40, 50 people, and 95% are on their cell phones. All right. They're not reading books. They're not reading magazines. They're not reading newspapers. They're on their cell phones. So, and they're not reading Dostoevsky and, Chekhov. They're reading text. Their reading is reading text messages, and you could see it, maybe playing some games. But that's all you see. People, it's the new opium. The subway cars to me are like, moving opium dens. And the opium has been replaced by people smoking their cell phones, and in and out of there. They can't get enough of it. You know what I mean? They just can't get enough of it, and so they don't care. There's another way of neutralizing people's political motivation to get involved, because they got the big football game on tonight. They're on their cell phone texting one another. What'd you think of that guy's pass or whatever, you know? And you got that, and then you got the fast food. I mean, you got a lot of distractions, and people, unless they're really hungry and homeless, really don't care about this. And then you got a big homeless crisis in this country. You got this huge homeless crisis, and you've got people underemployed. And so, they're trying to make ends meet. It's hard to get people motivated on this, okay? It's hard to identify and motivate people on this case, all right? So that's been the real problem, and no one's been able to figure out how you transmit this somehow, the seriousness of it, to the average person, and how they, get involved. I mean, look, you had revolutions when there was 70% unemployment in Nicaragua, and you had slavery in Haiti. I mean, you had revolutions, and you had a war, and everything had to work perfectly in Russia in 1917. So the conditions aren't there for people to massively fight back. I'm not talking about a revolution, but a spiritual revolution here. A revolution that's not in action.
It seems like there's a lot of people that think a revolutionary act is voting for Donald Trump at this point. That's about the extent of it.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's look at the choices we have right now. It's Donald Trump versus Victoria Nuland. That's what you have. Victoria Nuland and Tony Blinken. Forget about Biden. Biden's just but that's what you're getting. You're getting those three. You got Blinken, Nuland, and the other guy, Jake Sullivan. They're the ones who are running the operation. They're running the White House. All right. And so you got them, and then you got an international nuclear war crisis pending. And then you got Trump, and you've got a domestic civil war going. So it's a domestic civil war versus an international, catastrophe. I don't know. There's nothing in between. That's what you have. Mm-hmm. That's what you have going. So people they're not going to do it. Let's be honest. I've decided that I've been a cynic for a long time. You've seen me dressed up as Diogenes up in the state capitol looking for an honest man. Didn't find one. And I used to dress up as Diogenes in various places in DC and in New York. But that's a school of cynicism. It's all right, you just kind of forget about it. And that's going to morph into being a misanthrope, because the human race is hopeless. Why aren't they involved politically? Your life is short. Do something with it that will help the next generation, and the generation after that. Who wants to? How could I have a kid right now, knowing what's coming? I mean, if I had a child right now, would I really want to put him through this or her through it for 60 years? It's only going to get worse. You don't think it's going to get better, do you?
Well, as Chris has written about in a number of his books, we exist in forget who the French philosopher just coined anime, which is a stick. Basically, it's sort of hopelessness. People just they're like, well, what can I do? There's nothing we can do to change things. So let's just, not think about it, because we can't do anything anyway.
Right.
Which, I mean, the honest truth is, one of my favorite epitaphs is Mickey Rooney. Apparently, when they asked him what he wanted written on his tomb was, "I tried." You know what? And he didn't say it like that. Mickey Rooney would have said it like this, because I knew Mickey Rooney. I definitely tried. I was a good friend of Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney was a friend of mine. I worked with the great Mickey Rooney at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas. And I used to do my impression of him for him, and he loved it. Very good. You should take that on the road, Randy. Randy, we have to take
Yeah, go ahead, take your break. I'll do some more Mickey Rooney for you, all right?
Yeah, when you come back, more
of the mixture.
You can do Ronald Reagan. Anyway,
yes.
Randy, before I interrupted you there, uh, in uh, your Mickey Rooney impression.
Right.
Uh, how's your Biden impression? Have you got one?
You know what?
Hard to do.
Sammy Davis Jr. was one of the great impressionists, underrated, but he did. That's what his act back when he was, I forget, Sammy Davis Trio or whatever it was called. He did impressions, and he did a lot of impressions, and then he later just sang. And somebody asked him on a talk show. He said, "Why did you stop doing impressions?" And he said, "Man, I just couldn't keep up with it, man. I just could not keep up with it." And so, look, it's all I did. I started doing impressions when I was 17, 18. I worked. I worked in a pizza restaurant in Montclair, California, doing my Jolson impression with one of the worst the house piano player, and the compensation was a draft beer, Miller Lite, or Brew 102 Light, and pizza. And but I I did impressions. I did so many. So and then I just started doing in I think it was 81. I worked with Red Buttons. Worked in the Sahara Reno Hotel, in the lounge. He was in the main room with Eddie Bracken. You might know him from Preston Sturgis films. But he and I hung out a lot. And he was an old lefty, from the 50s, Red Buttons. And so when I was there with him, and Reagan had won and the Democrats had lost the Senate, and he was crying, and then he said, go to New York. You got to get out of Las Vegas, and because I know how political you are, and get out of here. So I left and went to New York, and I got really much more political. In '84, I was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and I was seen at Catch a Rising Star. There were 30 people that auditioned. I was the only one who made it because the talent coordinator said, "You're the only one talking about this election." And back then I did Reagan on the show. I was doing people like, what's his name? Ted Kennedy. I did little Ted Kennedy. I forgot what I was saying. Did Jackson, who was running for president at the time, and many others. The worst Walter Mondale in the world. And I even did Hubert H. Humphrey. And so I did Bush, and I did Bush too, and I did Clinton. I did Bill Clinton for a long time when he was talking like this, and he got very old, and he started talking like this, and my wife there, and and when after Obama, I just really got away from it. I just didn't do Obama, I didn't do Trump, and I just, because I'm not actively working on stage. I still do 120 impressions probably, but none of the current, because nobody knows. Back then, you knew all of the senators, whether they be Hal Heflin or Ernest Hollings or Phil Gramm. People knew who the senators were. But right now, who is there that you can imitate? That people know that Phil, the other Graham from South Carolina. Chuck Schumer. Who do people know? Richard Shelby. He's not even there anymore. So it's hard to find a figure, and that's what you got to do in the age of the internet and podcasts and all that. There's so many. Who are you? John Kirby? Well, that would be good for a small crowd. You know what I mean? But national figures, that if you're going to perform, if national figures, you could only do Biden.
Trump.
And what do you do with Biden? Just all of his lies and the fact that he's mentally not there. But that's not the problem. It's his policies. He remembers how bad his policies are. And he knows he's a neocon himself. He knows that. And he may have a lapse here and there, and people make fun of that, but that's not what you make fun of. You got to make fun of his policies. And I'm not sure if I was to work in a club that I could make that funny, talking about Ukraine and talking about Gaza and all that, and get people to sign on to it and laugh at it. You know what I mean? And because the public's not informed. They just don't know. They knew more back then. Look what they knew in the 60s. Dick Gregory and George Carlin, Dick Gregory, and Mort Saul. People understood. Lenny Bruce, they understood. They were much better educated back then and much hipper. Would they do well today? No, they would not do well today. Look at Saturday Night Live. They've been the same from the very beginning. There's nothing profound about what they do. That's why, the stuff on Saturday morning is politically more, strident than the stuff Saturday night. And I'm talking about cartoons. There's absolutely nothing that they do on policy. You know what I mean? If you watch Saturday Night Live, there's nothing about the hypocrisy of our on one side supporting Ukraine and calling the Russians butchers, even though we're killing. I was in Donbass. I was there. There were shells every single day. HIMARS missiles when I was there. I was scared to death for 7 days. And then and what's going on in Gaza? You think they were going to touch Gaza Saturday Night Live? Huh? Are they going to do anything? No. Look, I haven't seen it in 20 years, but once in a while someone says, "Did you see Saturday Night Live?" I said, "No." Some guy did a great impression of Biden. I said, "What did he do?" He was forgetting, which hat to wear or something like that. There's nothing significant about their comedy, and it's for teenagers anyway. And I suppose. And now I don't know why I drifted off into that. And you asked me about doing a Biden impression. See, I'm getting as demented as him. Dementia, like him. Not demented, dementia, like him. I don't. All I know is the guy is. What does he say? It's one of those guys that starts out, "Hey, look, hey, look." That's like it's the only thing I know is he always says, "Hey, look, guys." No, I could do him in a minute. All right, but I'm too busy trying to change the world for me to get involved listening. And then where would I put it? And I don't know. Well, you gave me some thought. Maybe I will work on the Biden voice and the Trump voice and all of that. But what do I do with it? Except for try to make it humorous and try to show the public what we have to face, what we have on November 5th this year, which is, look what we have. Look, it's like a Salvadoran election in the 80s. You got Dubuisson versus Duarte. There's not much. There's not much separating them. I don't know. I can't give it much thought. All I know is that Trump didn't give Julian a pardon, Assange or Snowden, because he was told not to, even though he bucked the CIA and the so-called deep state, which I don't use anymore, national security state in many ways. They didn't cross that line. Someone said to him, "You do this Assange thing, we're really," CIA wants him. The CIA does not forget. It's not about what he did in 2010. All right, that's the charges that are filed against him, but it's for exposing the CIA's spying capability and all of these Orwellian programs that they have. And they're using to spy on Americans. Right now, they're spying on us. Hi, guys. I can hear you cooking in the kitchen.
Hey, what, I know, but for the sake of the listeners, what is it that has essentially turned off the public about Julian? What's the common impression that you find that people say, "Oh, well, he did this or he did that, or he's a sex offender."
Right. Well, the whole thing, all you have to do is read Niels Melzer's book, who dissects the entire thing, does an autopsy on the contrived sexual allegations, never any charges. But that was just to keep them immobilized until they could find a way to bring him back to the U.S. and shut him up. All right. So they used this and they collaborated, the Crown Prosecutor Services, at the behest of the National Security State, the GCHQ, and the MI6 and Metropolitan Police, whatever, they were doing the bidding, the prosecutors, CPS, to keep these allegations going, even though the original prosecutor there, I forgot her name, but Marion Nye, I think her name is. And then the second one, she said there's nothing here. Fain was her name. Fain and Nye are the two female prosecutors. And the women never said that they were raped. It was consensual and there was something to do with the prophylactic. I don't know, but there was never any charges. They recanted. They were forced, and they never said they were raped. All right, the guy. The whole thing was contrived, and then they wanted, because Sweden was going to extradite him in a second back to the U.S. It was afraid to go there, and so he ended up in the Ecuadorian embassy. He had $300,000 bail. He's wearing an ankle bracelet, but he went in. I mean, he rankled a lot of people. It was for two reasons. First of all, the collateral murder and exposing U.S. war crimes and torture, and U.K. war crime and torture, and a whole bunch of other stuff, corruption in high places, and and people were giving him great stuff, and they had to find a way. They said it in 2008 memo. There was some memo back in 2008 from the Defense Department: is we got to destroy this man credibility and his image. And so they set out to do that, and that's what they've done. And then in 2016, you got these liberals who were all upset that Trump won. They blamed it on him instead of blaming it on Comey or blaming it on Hillary. It's like I said, Julian Assange didn't give Hillary's campaign a map of the U.S. that excluded Michigan and Wisconsin, where she didn't campaign, right? No, it was a terrible campaign. Did you listen to her garbage the other day? I'm not a big Tucker Carlson fan per se, but I thought it was a great interview. At least Putin was really sparkling and very educated and informative, and it's something everyone should see. But I don't even know where I am right now. So getting back to him, getting back to Assange, the powers that be do not want this guy doing what he was doing, and nobody else to emulate that. And so I know where I was with Hillary. So there goes my head. I'm doing my Biden right now. Hillary lost the campaign because she was horrible. And I was saying what she said the other day, and that was a taste of the kind of character she was. She was just lying and throwing out more disinformation and lies about someone I don't particularly like. He's not a hero, but it was pretty gutsy of him to conduct this interview because he knew he was going to get the flack that he got. But she was a horrible. And she stole the primaries from Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders would have beat Trump. People were looking for anything other than Hillary Clinton. That was force-fed down our throat the same way Biden was force-fed down our throat.
And currently it's being force-fed again down our throats.
Yes, again, guys,
Like, how many dumb mistakes can you make in a row and not learn your lessons,
It's the same thing. If you don't vote for Biden, you're going to give it to. That's not working anymore. That dog doesn't bite anymore. All right, we don't want. It's not. You don't vote for Victoria Nuland and Jake Sullivan, and there's not going to be more wars, and we're not going to be able to pay for weapons instead of paying for infrastructure or paying for. Healthcare and getting people off the streets into homes. No, we want to take your money and give it over there. And if you don't vote for Biden, that's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to destroy Ukraine and parts of Western Russia. So that's it. You have those two things about I think by and large it's those two. The fact that Hillary. And they got Trump, and then the other one is the sexual allegations, which, of course, will stick. The only thing that's worse than that is being called an anti-Semite, which, even if you're not, lasts forever, And this allegation of, and there were allegations. There were never any charges. The sex stuff was a complete lie, and it's something from the playbook of the defense establishment because they were embarrassed by the capability, by what Assange exposed. And this is before collateral murder. I mean, they were already upset with him, and they wanted to destroy his character and defame him and vilify him and spread all of these rumors, and it was an all orchestrated plan to get the public to not care or to be antipathetic. Well, not care or worse, antipathetic. And I encountered a lot of that in D.C. He committed treason. You hear people say, treason. He's an Australian citizen. So they don't understand. They don't understand a lot of people. They've been misinformed. And it's too late, talking to the Walking Dead, and other people say he's a rapist. So it worked. Whatever they did worked to neutralize a popular movement for Assange right now. Whatever they did is still paying dividends for them and making it easier to bring them over here and do what they plan to do. Well,
I would also add, and perhaps you can weigh in on this opinion, but I feel that the mainstream media has had quite a resentment towards Julian for doing the job that they ought to be doing. And like the New York Times and Washington Post were perfectly happy to run his material when it suited them, yet they've the whole journalistic world has practically kind of turned their backs on him.
Right. Especially the British press, the mainstream British press has, because they're cowards and they practice in, doing. John Pilger said this on my show. He says that he's embarrassed, shamed these journalists who engage in what Goebbels called the big lie. So that's what they do to make a living. I understand it. I under these guys at MSNBC. I've been around area Melbourne. They like to go to that bar downstairs. They like to rub shoulders, elbows with people like Clapper and John Brennan and the other spooks. And and put their kids in nice schools, and Rachel Maddow, they've all sold out. It's just the Mephisto syndrome. All right, you ever see the film Mephisto? Where
yes, one of my favorite films.
They got the Mephisto syndrome going on. They've all sold their souls, and at the end of the day, when they retire, they'll have a lot of money, and somehow they'll be able to rationalize what they've done. But if they have kids that went to school and they've learned anything, will say, why didn't you help out Julian Assange back then? Why did you participate in spreading disinformation on behalf of the government? That's all they do is put out disinformation. But, Melbourne basically told me that. He says, we got very, very narrow parameters here that we can deal, and you try to get your shots when you can. I mean, he came out with Assange, but they always have to preface it by saying, when they defend Assange, well, I don't agree with what he did, and I don't like his looseness when it comes to sex. They all do that. But as a journalist, they always have to put that disclaimer out front, and the lies to cover for themselves with the people that don't like Assange. Well, yes, I agree with you on that, but folks, this is a bad precedent. So, but you take a look at who's there, from Morning Joe to Jake Tapper. These are all U.S. state affiliated media, and we can't get upset with it. That's what they've done. It's like getting upset with the guy who runs USAID. I mean, he took the job, and his job is to lie, and that's what they took these jobs. And if you don't want it, and you want to make a job as a podcaster, how's Jake Tapper going to put his kids through a good school? So that's what he's done. He did the Mephisto. He says, all right, unless he's just stupid. Unless he's just stupid and doesn't know, and he actually believes what he's saying. He must. I don't know.
Tapper for nothing.
I don't know. Do these guys. The Nicole Wallace worked for Bush, and she's got a prime show at 5 o'clock, and sometimes 2 hours. And she's a neocon. She's there at MSNBC, uh, and Lawrence O'Donnell, all these liberals that are there. Joy Reid. They've been absolutely horrible on things that matter, whether it be mass surveillance, these wars that are going on, and the crackdown on whistleblowers. All right. All three of them, they hit the trifecta in the wrong direction, is what they've done. And they've all sold out. And like I said, they like hang out at that bar downstairs. And I went there a couple of times at 30 Rock. You go to that bar and hang out and you count your money. You make $3 or $4 or $5 million a year. Where else are you going to get that money? You're not going to sell out a 40-seat room with their act. Where are they going to make a living? They're going to do a podcast. Who's going to watch it? And look at the audience. Isn't that big? All right. All things considered, they get 400 or 500,000. Remember, there's 330 million people that are not watching CNN, that are not watching MSNBC. I mean, so they get 600, 700,000. You had 120 million, 150 so far million just on Twitter on this interview with Putin. I mean, that's those two networks combined for like 6 months or maybe a year of viewers. So of course they're jealous. They'd like to have that interview, but they wouldn't get the interview because it would be confrontational and it would be to the advantage of the powers that they represent. So why would Putin want to go on 60 Minutes? And it's not going to be a place where he can sit there and talk and lay it out like he did the other day for 2 hours. Laid it out. History of Russia. It was very, very informative and very what's the word? Compelling. The entire 2 hours. The only time it wasn't was when he was interrupted by Tucker Carlson.
My favorite part of the interview is when Putin asked Tucker Carlson if he was an asset for the CIA.
Well, he wasn't. He wanted to be. You know what I mean? He wanted to be. He look. I don't know what for Tucker. It was about him. All right, getting this guy. All right. Was it about saving the world from nuclear war? I don't know. Maybe that was in the back of his mind. He really wanted this interview and have 200 million viewers and good. It was for him, good for his career. And, whatever the motivation is, it turned out to be he stole the show, Putin, and was able to neutralize Tucker's eagerness to go to, clickbait answers. All right. That's what he was looking for. I don't want to hear about this stuff in Russia history. Why did you invade? Right in the very beginning. And the guy said, wait a second, man, you're lucky to have me here. I don't need to do this. I'm going to do it. So you're going to, enjoy the moment, enjoy the 2 hours. You're not getting this again. Sit through it and then edit it if you want to. And then the whole thing about the Nazis say, well, the Nazism ended with Hitler. Well, you're just how many miles away are you from Ellenville?
Oh, 25 maybe.
All right. Well, go there to Heroes Park.
I've been there. I have been there.
All right.
Yes.
So you know what's there. All right. So Nazism hasn't disappeared from from the world psyche. At least, I mean, Ukrainian Nazism still exists. I saw it, man. I saw it when I was in Donetsk, and there were table loads of paraphernalia and memorabilia and books and pictures that were recovered from the Azovstal in Mariupol that were on display that were all like Nazi stuff. All right, so don't tell me it doesn't exist. And that's what he was trying to say to the guy. So there's a couple of things I didn't like about it. I don't know why we're spending our last few minutes talking about Tucker Carlson.
Well, let's I'll leave you with some to say a few last words before you go. Just whatever you want to say it.
I want to thank you. I want to thank your producer, Liz Hill.
Yes.
Who's been
Thank you,
really
Liz.
great, for both times. And she's been a supporter of the truck, and she's put it out on Facebook and on Twitter, and so she's got good politics. I said, next time I'm there, getting my car fixed on Ulster Avenue or wherever, Albany Avenue at Everett Motors, I'm
Right.
gonna let's have coffee, right? I go all the way up there because I don't trust the mechanics in Brooklyn. I got to drive up to Kingston, and I got my vet up there, Argos. Dr. Ulysses, I was just up there, went up there and then stopped at Adams and packed up a bunch of food and came back to New York City. All right. So I love Kingston. I may take the truck up there. I don't know. Maybe I'll spend the day up at Kingston and Woodstock and Boyceville and that neighborhood for one full day. It's possible, especially now that you'll drive on shotgun in one of the trucks.
Yes.
It's like the old days in Gunsmoke, sitting shotgun
Yeah,
on
exactly.
Stagecoach, right? You're the guy with the shotgun, and you may need it. So if there's any CIA agents out there who want to give you a flat tire in that truck.
Okay, Randy.
I know. Anyway, it's great. It's great to be here, and anytime, I'm very comfortable doing your show. All right, so
You're always welcome.
A lot out of me, and I feel comfortable, and it's conversational, which is the way I like it. You know.
Cool. Well, I'll see you down in New York City, and
I promise you're going to be you'll sit shotgun.
my word is
all right. All right. Liz, you write that down, Liz, and we'll arrange it. All right.
Okay. All right, Randy. Take care of yourself.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Malcolm. Bye bye, everybody.
Yeah. See ya.